probably makes their supporters thinking, what if? And I'm sure in the coach's box gives plenty of work to the assistant coaches, one of whom joins us now. Good evening, Brett.
Evening, Finey. How are you?
Good, mate. There must be easier jobs than coaching North Melbourne, because I reckon North Melbourne's almost like a champion young colt that needs to be gelded at times. The ability seems there, and there's just been games where I'm sure not only the fans but you guys in the coaches box have sort of scratched your head and said, we just shouldn't have lost those games, or how did we lose those games?
Yeah, no doubt. It has been a frustrating season in the coach's box for sure. And look, I probably agree with most of the statements you made there. I think we're on the right track. We're capable of playing some very, very good football, but for a myriad of reasons, unfortunately haven't got over the line on 3 or 4 occasions this season. So it leaves us in a pretty vulnerable position.
Yeah, Brett, it's Brett Anderson here from Inside Football. I was at the game on the weekend, covered the game for Inside Footy, and the way that you set up early to take on Richmond and really rebound off half-back was really impressive. Obviously, that was something you would have set out to do during the week, but you were a little bit surprised at how easily they played into your hands?
We did a lot of study on them, and we felt that was probably the best way to try and go about it. No doubt we were fairly happy with the way things did set up, and we knew at half time they'd have to make some changes, and they tried that at half time. But on this occasion we were able to adjust to those and play out the 4 quarters and come away with a good win. So it was a pleasing day.
Brett, this just may have been the circumstance of the game, but the first 10 minutes of actual game time, which amounts to about 15 minutes on the clock, was final-esque, and it was very much not to type for North Melbourne, because it was all about accountability. There was a ferocity in the tackle that any team would have been proud of, and I don't think you can set up a win better than really making your opponents just absolutely believe that the old implied pressure theory that this day is going to be a tough day, and when they're gasping for air, then turn on the afterburners. I would have thought that this game in the coach's box would have been a dream.
Yeah, look, it was. You're right. The first 15 minutes was a real arm wrestle, and not a lot of scoring. Sort of getting the ball forward, but not getting it through. And I think you're right. It was similar to a finals type game. So look, it was pleasing that we were able to sort of see it through that first 15 minutes, and then we were able to get the game a little bit more on our terms. And as you say, things fell our way, and we had a good victory in the end.
In the second quarter, there was a moment, and after that moment, I was very comfortable with North Melbourne. Thank you very much. About 5 metres off the top of the Richmond goal square. I'd love to be able to name the Richmond player, but he was unidentifiable. He had the ball close to in possession and was tackled by... It wasn't just that he was tackled by 4 or 5 North Melbourne players. They tackled him in formation. It looked very much like the operation at the beginning of Usual Suspects, when there was one car in the middle and 4 or 5 either side, and he couldn't go anywhere. And it was just, to me, the numbers were up, Richmond. If that's how North are going to play today, you're done.
Yeah, look, no doubt it's been probably a focus of ours the last few weeks, has been trying to make sure we get our numbers over to where the ball is. It's something that we probably weren't really good at or weren't doing very well, probably a month ago. So that was pleasing to see. And when you see those things in the those contests in the coach's box, that it's pretty much a good a bit of a tick, and you know that the players are switched on and have come to play for particularly that game.
Just on the pressure there, Brett, there was a remarkable stat in the second quarter that we touched on during the coverage. I think Mark Allen was doing around the grounds for SEN, and it was that at the 28-minute mark of the second quarter, Richmond took their first mark from the quarter from a Richmond kick. So that means that North Melbourne's pressure and it's stopping those uncontested marks and being able to pressure the ball when it was being disposed was amazing for the quarter. They didn't kick a goal, Richmond, for the quarter, but North Melbourne's ability to stop those easy uncontested marks was outstanding, wasn't it, Brett?
Yeah, it was, and look, the stats show that it is a strong part of the Richmond game. So certainly it was something we wanted to take away if we could, and pleasing that the boys were able to shut that down, and if you can stop a team doing what they want to do, that goes a long way to achieving the victory on the day.
It was a bitter pill to take for player and for club when Boomer got suspended for that reckless act in the final last year. But now and of course you'd love to be. It would have been better had he played at the start of the season and North were 8-6 or even 9-5, but it's not the case. That being said, he is fresh, he is flying, and he's going to, you'd think, have a big say in these remaining games.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It was tough to take. Had he played in a few of those games, maybe the result might have been different. I think the pleasing thing out of it for us has been finding that, as a side, we're not relying on the Harveys and Petries and Wellses anymore to win us games. I think the pleasing part's been that we've got quite a few players coming through now who are putting their hand up and making their mark on games. So we don't need those 3 or 4 blokes to be best on ground for us to win games of footy anymore. So that's probably the positive of the season for us so far.
I really believe this. I think individually, if you look at North Melbourne players individually, they've improved or they've got bigger results out of lesser-known players than any other club. It's the unit, it's the actual team dynamic that might have let the side down on a few occasions, but individually, and that I'm sure you're just working on as the weeks progress, but individually, I'd like to ask you, Brett, which player has surprised you the most in the steps he has taken this year, either from outside of the team or even a player who had been in the team but is now playing much better football?
Oh, look, the one I think that's come on the most and probably surprised me a little bit is Aaron Mullett across half-back. Look, I've seen him be able to play on our small forwards of our own team, in our match practice at training. Did a really good job there. I wasn't sure if he could be able to do it against the better small forwards of opposition teams, but he's had a super season for us. And with him and Sean Attlee back there playing on those small dangerous forwards, not only sort of shutting them down, but still being able to give us some run and drive from the back line's been something that's been really pleasing for us during this season.
You haven't minded a mullet all your life, I reckon. I reckon I got a footy card with you sporting a couple of odd hairdos like that, Brett.
Back in my younger day, do you think? Fine?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no, I just shear it all off now. It's much easier to look after. You don't have to do too much with it in the morning. But I do remember having a couple of hairdos the same as Mull. In those early 90s.
Hey, Brett, Taylor Hines, another one who's come to the footy club this year and is playing a role for you in terms of a defensive role. He played on Brett Deledio on the weekend, did an outstanding job both when Deledio was at half-back and also when he got pushed forward to try and find a kick. He's been a really good story over the last 4 or 5 weeks, hasn't he, with his ability to come in and play those versatile defensive roles? Yeah,
absolutely. Really competitive kid. Loves a contest. Hates getting beaten. So probably the perfect type of player to play those roles. And, he had Deledio last week, did a really good job on Brett Deledio for us. The week before against GWS, he had, I'm trying to think who it was. But I can't remember the player now, but same role. And look, he's been doing them really well for us, and been a bit of a real bonus for us in that area of the game.
In terms of the rest of the year, you've probably, those early losses have left you with little wriggle room in terms of being able to push for the finals. And no doubt that's still on the agenda there. There's plenty of winnable games coming up. We were talking a little bit before about the Essendon situation. And do you look at maybe ninth might be good enough to get you in now? I know you want to win as many games as possible for the rest of the year, but there is that sneaking suspicion that something might happen at the end of the year where ninth is good enough.
Yeah, no, look, we haven't discussed that at all, not one bit. So, who knows what's going to happen with that situation? We're trying to get into the 8. As far as we're concerned at the moment, that's what's going to be there at the end of the season. So you need to get into the 8 to play finals. So, we're just trying to get the ledger back to even. Try and get back to 8 and 8 now. We've got 2 big games over the next few weeks for that to happen. And then if we can get to there, I reckon that gives us some sort of chance of maybe pushing on. But, we're playing some very good sides in the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. And, if we are able to get there, we'll have deserved it. And, we'll probably will have been in some pretty good form because we're going to have to be in good form to beat the teams we need to beat to make the final 8.
We're speaking with Brett Allison, assistant coach of North Melbourne. Asking the question is Brett Anderson from Inside Football. And speaking of Anderson, not Brett, but the English Anderson, he will not want to have much to do today because his team has won the toss and is batting in the first test against Australia. Brett, There's an interesting dynamic that the club must need to negotiate now on a sort of semi-weekly basis, and that is that your partly aligned VFL affiliate Werribee remains in the Foxtel Cup, and Tuesday night football, especially as played last night underwater at Patterson Stadium, would almost preclude a player from playing on the weekend. So those teams need to be obviously selected in conjunction with the club, and it might make moving around players difficult. For example, Majak Dor got knocked out
last night. Yeah.
Last night, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, got a bit of friendly fire from Ben Spate, so that was unfortunate for Maj. But yeah, we've come across that a couple of times this season, and I think on one occasion we actually did play one or two out of that game on the midweek game on the following weekend. So. Look, they're only 20-minute flat quarters, so the game time is not the normal game time that they would play. But it is a balancing act, and we've been able to use it to bring blokes back from injury. That's been a positive of the midweek games. But you're right, you really got to keep your eye on players playing sort of two games, or it's probably 1.5 games in 4 or 5 days.
Just quickly, what were your thoughts when you saw the conditions last night? Because that was something that we haven't seen too many times, especially in Perth. That was amazing in terms of the amount of water that was sitting on the ground and the rain that was going on.
Yeah, look, I felt a little bit sorry for the boys. A long trip over to Perth to play on a really good ground. Normally, Subiaco, one of the great grounds to play AFL footy on, and then unfortunately, to see the weather conditions and the rain before the game would have been a bit disappointing for the boys, I reckon, to get over there.
It's a night where if you're a forward, you're in danger of getting pneumonia, I think, especially in those conditions.
Yeah, no doubt. Not great conditions for forwards. I think most defenders and midfielders probably don't really give too much of a worry about it. But certainly, yeah, if you're a forward playing in those sort of conditions, you certainly know it's going to be a tough game.
Did you see what one of the East Fremantle players did after the game, Brett?
No, I didn't. I turned it straight off when the final siren went. So what happened there?
He did what everybody probably watching the game thought they'd like to do. He took his jumper off and he just did the biggest belly slide into the deepest puddle in the forward pocket. Must have gone 20 metres and ended up sort of submerged with all of his teammates in hysterics.
Yeah, I've seen a few blokes do that at training, but I've never seen it in a game.
Yeah, well, he was very close to losing his togs as well, so probably wouldn't be doing it again. Brett, it's, again, North Melbourne remain the Rubik's Cube of the AFL season. Hard to work out. We don't know exactly what the puzzle will look like at the end of the season, but hopefully the pieces fall into place because you're a great team to watch when you're up and about. So thanks for joining us again.
No worries. Thanks, boys, and thanks for giving us the opportunity.